Stronger together. Stronger, stronger together.
You know, some things are so dangerous and so detrimental that they simply have to be removed, either from yourself, your body, from society, whatever the case might be. When something becomes so damaging that you just can't survive, the good of the many is endangered, or the good of yourself, guess what? You get rid of it. Take the Bible. Now, I'm sitting in front of a whole lot of Bibles and a few Book of Buddhas, and we have some teachings of Mormons as well over here. And that's because my late husband Andrew felt that the Bible had been so misinterpreted over the years by people that in every hotel we stayed in, he took it. And he also wrote where we were. As you can see, I've been a lot of places. He was dead serious that he felt he was keeping dangerous propaganda out of the hands of a young child. He was very serious about that. Now, I think about that because I'm thinking a lot about the GOP these days. And it's funny that I should be holding a Bible while thinking about the GOP, because they have co-opted the worst that this book has to offer, the most of the misinterpretations. Take all the noise over gay marriage, okay? Which there is no more gay marriage, by the way. There's just marriage. Gay marriage is over. And take all the noise over that. How hateful was that? Now, they say they're just exercising their freedom of speech, that they're just exercising their right to be them. No, what they're doing is hatred, and they're cloaking it in something that they say came out of this book, which was written by men, okay? Written by men who never met Christ. And which it's got so many penalties for so many other things in it that they just ignore. You know, we are in an election cycle. We are filming this in 2015. And, you know, Hillary is announced, and there's a few other Democrats. But on the Republican side, there is literally a baseball team or more full of people who are running. And one thing is in common with all of them. They are all hate mongers. Each and every single one of them is a hate monger. And you have to wonder, at what point does America say, no, we are tired of this political party? We have had other political parties in our history. Trust me, Thomas Jefferson started the Democratic-Republican Party. That's what he started. That was its name. There was also the Federalist. There were other parties. Then they dropped Republican from the Democratic Party, and guess what they did? In deference to Thomas Jefferson, when they started a new party, the Republican Party, they named it after Thomas Jefferson in deference. Parties have changed throughout the years. You know, why is the Green Party looked at as ridiculous? Or independents like Bernie Sanders looked at as fringe? And yet the most fringe party of all, the party that harms America more by any shape or form, a party of unindicted war criminals. This party, Jeb Bush is the brother of an unindicted war criminal, and Jeb Bush himself participated in a coup in the year 2000, orchestrated by the neoconservative wing of the Republican Party, who used the Supreme Court and a state that his brother was the governor of, where the election official was on his committee, to take over the U.S. government and launch not one, but 2 illegal occupations. That's a coup. And those are illegal wars, and those are war criminals. And that's the Republican Party. Let's look beyond the racism that they exhibit every time that they sit down and have to debate something like the Confederate flag. You think it's a bigoted symbol for the love? I mean, really? Every time they go on TV and say, oh, marriage has been stomped upon and the Supreme Court is activist judges and God's rule, they're being hateful and mean to tax-paying Americans. And they are the fringe. They offend immigrants. They offend gays. Women, they want control of your uterus. And what they all have in common, most of them, they're rich, white, Republican men. They are the fringest of the fringe, and yet we give them credibility. We put Donald Trump up to the world as a candidate for anything. We show polls to the world where he actually polls well. Are you kidding me? The man is look up the definition of a-hole. There's a picture of Donald Trump. Jeb Bush, Bobby Jindal, who is such a race hater to his own Indian race that he changes his name to Bobby when it's really like Piyush. Come on. This is one of the most hateful parties around. There is no reason for them to have a public stage. There is no, freedom of speech. We don't give all the parties a public stage. We don't cover the debates of the Green Party or the Libertarians. We only cover the Democrats and Republicans. Well, it's time to stop covering the Republicans. Stop giving them microphones. They have their own network. It's called Fox. Let them have their folly. Let them broadcast on that fringe network. But it is time for mainstream media and mainstream America to see these people for the hate mongers that they are, and they do it all in the name of their God. Well, let me tell you, I've read this cover to cover. And everything I know about Jesus Christ would say he would not be a Republican. In fact, he would condemn them and throw them out of the temple. So why don't we? Ridiculous. This is Attila, and you often see him. He's a chow chow, and he's very willful, and he doesn't really want to be on camera right now because I want him to be. But if I didn't want him to be, he, of course, would saunter right in. But this is Attila. He is my 10-year-old chow chow, and this is Miss Pippa. Now, I love these kids like they were my own children, and I think we are moving into an era where people are recognizing that pets have a very vital role in our lives. There's so many advantages to owning a pet. However, there's responsibilities, and one of them is feeding them, okay? We have to feed our kids. Most of you rely upon store-bought dog food. And while I don't want to alienate any potential sponsors, I would just like to say there are very few store-bought dog foods that I would feed to my pets. And that's because I researched and found out what was in them, including rendered animals, and some has phenobarbital in it, which means that they're using animals that were put down, which they're not supposed to do. So I had to take matters into my own hands. But I don't have the $4 to $6 per can that they charge for the gourmet dog food. I am now known at the local market as the crazy guy who makes dog food. When I do my radio show, the Karel Cast, and I give out my dog food recipe, it's one of the biggest segments. So I thought today on Life in Segments, I'd show you how to make the dog food that I give these kids, and they get clean bills of health from the vet. I augment it with some all-natural gluten-free food that I get at my local pet store. It doesn't have any preservatives or additives. It's made in the USA. I'm going to give you the recipe, and it's very similar to some of the more commercial things that are out there but are more expensive. Now remember this, even the cheap stuff is about $1.80 a can, okay, for a little over a pound. You can often find chicken on special for 69 cents all the way up to $1.50 a pound. Already you're giving them a better food, and it's cheaper than the mystery meat that's inside the others. Now, let me tell you, the first thing you need to do is some research. You want to do this economically, which means if you're going to feed them chicken, which is great, or ground turkey is fine. They sell ground turkey in a chub. It ends up being about $1.69 a pound. You want for your meat, you kind of want to stay under $1.29 or $1.39 a pound to make it economical for you. If you want to do it boneless because you want to be lazy, then you can go all the way up to $1.99 a pound. If you want to do all this organically, go ahead and do that. However, I figure the whole foods here sold at my local supermarket have to at least be better than what they would get in a can. So I feel good about them even though they're not, necessarily organic. So this week, you always check your store flyers, always. You can check them online and find out where the best deals are. Ethnic markets are going to be the absolute best deals for these sort of things. I'm telling you, you can get the best deals at Hispanic bodegas or Vietnamese markets, Indian markets. They often have great deals on chicken and other things that you're going to need. So go to a market that has a good price on the meat, because that's the first thing that you're going to want. So I'm starting with 6 boneless chicken breast. And these boneless chicken breasts are going to make it easy for me to grind up into the dog food afterwards. If they had bones in them, I would cook them with the bone in and then debone them afterwards. Okay, that'll save time. Now, they didn't have chicken liver, which was upsetting to me, but sometimes you got a deal because you can't find chicken liver that easily because it was recalled a few years back, and now it's been slow to get back into the store. So this is beef liver. You want to make sure that you have liver in it. Liver gives great nutrients to your dog, and your cat, just like chicken. It's got high in vitamins. Now, rolled oats instead of rice. Okay, a lot of you cook chicken and rice for your dogs. No, 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 no. Not the white rice. White rice is starch. It's going to make them fat. It could give them diabetes, all kinds of other things. Give them 100% rolled oats, which is, guess what? Oatmeal. Then the veggies. Now, people say, do dogs eat vegetables in the wild? Dogs don't exist in the wild, okay? Those are called wolves. We created these animals, so they have nutritional needs. Pumpkin fulfills a great nutritional need. So be sure you get 100% organic and make sure that there's nothing in it except pumpkin. Look at the ingredients and make sure it just says ingredients, pumpkin. Sugar, no nothing. Just make sure it says pumpkin. Then you're going to want some carrots. You're going to want 2 types of squash, yellow and green, colorful, just like for you. We have such color here. We have the orange, we have the yellow, we have the green of this squash. You could also get a Mexican squash, okay? By the way, pumpkin's very hard to find at the grocery store, especially in the can. Be sure you persist. And there's several types of green squash you can get. If the other's on sale, go ahead and get it. The dog's not going to be that picky. Then you want sweet potatoes, not yams, sweet potatoes. And, of course, you want green beans. You can prepare them and take these off if you want, but we're going to be processing these later. And believe me, I know you're going to be like, Karel, the dogs don't care, because there's been a few times where I just haven't. I just threw them in there, and guess what? Everybody was just fine. And then, of course, you're going to want greens. You can use spinach. I use good old greens. Now, your first step, my first step, your first step, is to cook the meat. The meat takes a little longer than the veggies. So, what you want to do is take a nice big stock pot, fill the stock pot up about to here with water, and then put your chicken in it, okay? Yes, you're going to boil it because you're going to use that stock for the rest of the recipe. I'm using about 5 pounds of chicken and 2 pounds of liver, so that's about 7 pounds. So for that proportion, I'm going to use 2 good-sized yellow, 3 little of these, 4 little of those, 3 little of those. Dogs don't like carrots in particular, like it's not their favorite food. Some of your dogs might, but most dogs, they don't, and then the greens, you can put as many as you want because they all cook down to basic nothing. You can prepare this the way that you would prepare it for yourself, by the way, because guess what? You're really just making a big chicken stew. So what you would do is prepare the vegetables the same way. Well, not quite the same way. I don't peel the carrots because there's still a lot of good stuff. I do wash them, of course. I do cut them in half for cooking and for washing purposes, because I wash them again before I cook them. Same with the squash, off with their heads. Now, why I'm doing this now is because as soon as I take out the chicken, I'm going to put this in the stock and cook these. And you're not going to cook them until they're mushy, even though you're going to end up grinding them up if you want to. There's several ways you can prepare it. So you're not going to cook them until they're mushy, but you are going to cook them pretty well. Slice up your sweet potatoes. Makes them easier to grind later. If you want to cube all this and make a cute little cubed stew for your little fluffy, honey, you go right ahead. If you're like me and, think that it's already absurd that you're always making dog food when you don't cook for yourself. I will be having a TV dinner or takeout tonight, okay? The other veins are fine. You just don't want the big ones. So take the big one out. I know there are some of you at home saying, that's not how you do greens. Look at it. That's how I do greens for dog food, okay? I cut the big vein out, and they can have the other. And believe me, they love it. We have our vegetables that are cooked. Now remember, they're not completely mushy. You don't want them to be because you're going to mince them up. So you want them, because it's going to be like a paste like you get in the canned dog food. But first you're going to take your rolled oats. And I have found that you don't want the dog food to be too soupy. Your dog won't like that if it's a stew. I know that Halo Spot stew is a stew, but dogs tend to like it, more meatier. So for what the amount of stuff that we have here, I'm going to use about half of this oatmeal. And I use the quick oats because they're basically ready to go right away. Okay? Now here is chicken stock from cooking the chicken breast that we have. I'm going to take the chicken stock and I'm going to cover the oatmeal just until there's just enough, and you can judge when it's just enough to pretty much moisten it. Mix it about to moisten. Be sure you get it all mixed about so it's all pretty much getting that lovely warm stock. So even it is soaked in, vegetable or in protein goodness. Okay, there you go. For the next step, I normally take a stray lid that I have and put it over it just to keep the heat in for the minute that it's supposed to cook. I have my organ meat here, which is the liver that we're going to be putting in. I have the chicken breast. Now remember, you can use chicken leg meat. That's often very affordable, boneless chicken leg meat. Again, check your markets. Now remember, you're doing this for the health of the pet. You're doing this to save yourself money, to save yourself money and to control what they're eating, because you don't know what's in the cans. You really just don't. So take a breast. Take some of the liver. I use my fingers. If it grosses you out, use, tongs or whatever. Take some of the liver. And then you're going to need something because that's hot. Take some of the veggies. All hot and steamy. And then, of course, you can take the lid off. And it's over here on the side of the bowl. Take a little of the oatmeal. Put that up in there. Put on the lid. You know how on a recipe you see on the side of the can, water sufficient for processing? I now know what that means. If we turn this on, we're going to get lovely chunky food. And by the way, if your dog will eat it this way, if your pet will eat it nice and chunky, hey, go ahead and stop there. Mine don't like it that way, okay? They like it like the paste, like the regular dog food. So, have some stock on reserve. Add a little in. Things change dramatically in there. And again, you might be wondering, what is this doing on Free Speech TV? Well, look, don't you want to care for your pet in the best way possible and the most economical? Do I need to go into the political ramifications of the fact that the Chinese can kill our pets and suffer no political problem? Nothing. Nothing happened to them when they killed our pets. Nothing of any substance. You don't know what you're feeding them. You don't know where it's coming from. Our own Congress just said that they don't have to tell you where the meat that you're eating is coming from. They no longer have to tell you the country of origin. So where the hell are they getting, the stuff they're putting in the food? So at least by doing this, you are taking control of your pet's health in some way. After you mix all of that in here, you then throw it into here, and you mix it all together as well. And that way you're just getting a really good mix of it. And if you look at it, it's very much like the stuff that you would see. By the way, it's really good. That's very good. I get this size of these types of containers. I fill up one and put it in the refrigerator for the week ahead because they last about 3 days, which would be about 30 scoops. So I take back control of what my pet eats. I'm not giving it over to some nameless company that I don't, know about. I know exactly where all of the food came from. And I have the no vet bills and the absolute clean bills of health to prove that this, coupled with good walking, will help your pet stay healthy.
It is the Karelcast. I am Karel. So very glad you are joining me. Look, no matter when you're watching this, whether you're summer, winter, spring, or fall, you know the phenomenon of the summer blockbuster movie. Now we get assaulted. It's sort of like Christmas, where they start Christmas music now basically in July. The summer blockbuster starts in May, goes all the way through the summer, and then you start hearing about them again for the following year. I wanted to talk about the summer blockbuster phenomenon, particularly because one of them is turning a very special age this year, with my friend Eric Davis from Fandango. Hello, Eric.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. We barely get to see each other. We should do this more often.
Yes, I know.
Now, let me show you a collector's... I'm such a nerd, okay? You're just going to know this about me. Let me show you this collector's item thing I have here. This is a 3D poster of Jaws.
That's cool.
And it's unsealed. We haven't opened it. I don't get to play with it. But this is how much I love that movie. And Jaws was basically the first summer blockbuster, was it not?
It was. It was the first summer blockbuster. It was the first movie to really cause kind of mass hysteria at the box office over the summer. And studios kind of looked at that and they were like, maybe we should do this a little bit more often and put films that have really big audiences over the summer movie season. And so we saw it slowly climb. I don't think we really hit the peak of the summer movie season until the 90s. I feel like in the 80s, they were still playing around with what it was, even though we had big films that came out over the summer. But yeah, Jaws was the one that did it, and it inspired a lot of the summer movies to come, too.
It absolutely did. Now, we have, it's funny because this last summer, we have Avengers and we have a Jurassic World, which, we talk about Jaws. That movie was magic because it almost didn't happen. The shark is named Bruce after his lawyer, after Steven Spielberg's lawyer. And it never worked. You don't even see it in the movie for almost I think it's an hour in or 80 minutes in before you even see the shark.
Yeah, which he does out of necessity because the shark was never working.
Right.
So which it actually worked out to his benefit. And Steven Spielberg, he thought this movie was going to tank. He was afraid of this film, very much afraid. He didn't think he thought it was going to ruin his career.
And it ended up, of course, being iconic and setting the stage. And as it has yet another anniversary, I think a whole new generation, they're going to be able to see it in the theaters this summer. I think a whole new generation are getting to see the brilliance that is a movie that is forced to build suspense other ways instead of the special effects. Now, let's talk about the summer blockbusters. Has it become the Black Friday for the theater owners and for the theater companies? Meaning, is this where they make most of their money?
Yes. I think still the summer movie season is where studios are making kind of the bank. But that's changing, especially in different times. The spring we're starting to see big movies crop up in the spring. And I'm targeting early February. We're looking at late January, early February. We're starting to see big movies happen too. Maybe movies that studios are taking a little bit more of a risk on, like something like the Lego Movie was one of last year's biggest movies, and it opened up in early February. So yeah, we're seeing different movies, different times of the year.
What ends up happening is movie studios only then make, $300 million movies. They don't make these $5 or $10 or $15 million movies that are the places that we find the new actors and the new actresses, or the old actors and the old actresses. And they tend not to make them because they're so invested in these enormous films.
I think we have more variety than we've ever had, personally. So yes, big studios are still putting a lot of their money into the big mega blockbusters, but there's also a lot of smaller movies that are coming out too. So I get what you're saying, but I do think that there's more variety than there's ever been. And what I like is that they're taking some of these filmmakers like Colin Trevorrow, who had a film at the Sundance Film Festival, and then they're taking him and giving him something like Jurassic World. So they're taking chances on some of these more inventive directors that are debuting movies in these film festivals and giving them big franchises, and that's sort of where we're getting to discover new talent. So, yeah, yes and no. But
now, Eric, let me ask you this. If you had to pick out, a summer blockbuster other than Jaws of late, because I think people are getting lazy now. They think if you throw, $300 million at a movie, that all of a sudden, you're guaranteed a great film. If you had to pick summer blockbusters of late, because all the top 10 movies are basically sequels, what original movie is coming out that really is going to be a blockbuster for years to come?
This summer, original movie, there's not many big blockbusters left this summer that follow kind of the original template. We still have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation based on a franchise, Terminator Genesis based on a franchise, Fantastic Four based on a franchise. You have Ant-Man, which is Marvel's new movie, which is sort of, it's a brand new character. We haven't seen him yet, but he's still based, tied in within the comic and the cinematic universe. So, yeah, not many big. I'm trying to think off the top of my head in terms of an original movie. We may get something in August, but yeah, nothing.
My point being is that for the last five or maybe even 10 years, Hollywood has basically been giving us pablum. Rehashes, remakes, sequels, and they're not taking the chances that maybe they should be, like on a film from a novel like Jaws. That's all.
Yeah, but then you look at something like Mad Max Fury Road, which is based on an established franchise, and Warner Brothers took a huge risk. I mean, if you watch that movie, you're like, oh, I can't believe a studio funded this
like
crazy
finding
movie.
A book by Peter by finding some novel and letting some novice director like Spielberg direct. I mean, it's not the same.
That's 1975.
Yeah.
So we're going back.
Right. Yeah, everything now has to be so freaking safe before they even start the project. They want to be guaranteed success. And if you had wanted guaranteed success before they started Jaws, you would not have had it. You would not have been able to tell them that it was going to be a huge hit. Well, Eric Davis from Fandango, thank you so much for joining me as always.
Thank you, Karel.
Absolutely. I am Karel, of course. Don't go anywhere. But, there is something to be said about the politics of it all. It does bother me. There was a big deal made about the Cinemark theaters. The Cinemark being owned by this big, guy. I guess he's anti-abortion, that he shouldn't have one, and anti-gay marriage. And so people were like, oh, Cinemark. So if we are going to take into account the politics of something like the Cinemark, then why wouldn't we take in the politics of AMC? And the fact is that China does own AMC, or a major portion of it. They did it so they could, expand in China and not have to be beholden to an American company. And that's just pretty damn odd. Hey, it's Karel, and Karel Life and Segments is brought to you from the underwriting of FarmFreshFlowers.com, a local flower grower in Southern California. What's in the field today is at the door tomorrow. FarmFreshFlowers.com. Also, the Buena Vista Cafe. Located on Hyde Street in the Wharf in San Francisco, the Buena Vista is the birthplace of Irish coffee in the United States. The Buena Vista Cafe and thebuenavista.com. And of course, Cedarside, all natural flea and tick protection for you and your pet. Cedarside.com uses safe, effective Texas cedar oil for safe and effective flea and tick control for you and your pets. Cedarside.com.